During this Baroque era of art, where all these painters are emerging from the woodwork and forming this Mount Rushmore of great artists, we see Caravaggio and Michelangelo, even her father Horatio, making an incredible name for himself. We notice that this list of people is exclusively men, and that was a huge struggle, if not the struggle, during the 17th century for Artemisia and women alike. Yet she not only managed to make a name for herself, but also become this pioneer for feminism before it was even understood or acknowledged as a real movement. Artemisia was born in 1593 to her father Horatio, who was a painter from Tuscany, and her mother Prudentia, who died when she was 12 during childbirth. She was very well aware early on in life of how the world treated and respected women from growing up in a rough area where prostitution and street fights were commonplace. She was not safe alone on the streets, as if there were an opportunity to be taken advantage of, it would be taken. Her father, Horatio, did his very best to try and keep her out of harm's way, and it became increasingly easier as he made a bigger name for himself as an artist. He was making enough money from commissions to move them to a nicer area in a bigger house that came equipped with a studio as well. It's around this time that Artemisia began to experience harassment from men in and out of her father's studio. It was around this time that she also produced Susanna and the Elders, her earliest known work of art and her debut of these pieces that told stories about injustice against women. Susanna and the Elders is a biblical story about female virtue. This woman, Susanna, who is depicted as this chaste, beautiful lady, has these two elder men spying on her while she bathes. They conspire this plan and tell it to her that they want to sexually assault her and that she should let them do it, or they'll tell everyone that she committed adultery with a young man. Since adultery was a crime punishable by death, they were pretty much asking her if she would rather be raped or if she would rather die. She ends up choosing death, but her life is saved by this man named Daniel, who ends up proving her innocence. Artemisia created this piece to accurately display the emotions and feelings a woman would feel in the same position Susanna was in. Adding this piece by Giuseppe Cesari depicting the same story also shows us the difference between the two and how a woman versus a man saw the story. The whole moral of the story is lost in Cesari's piece, as it seems that Susanna isn't even attempting to hide herself from the elders, nor does she seem unpleased with the fact that they are snooping on her. Unfortunately, Artemisia encountered a more serious event of assault when her father befriended Agostino Tassi, a fellow painter. Agostino sexually assaulted Artemisia one day when her father wasn't home in May 1611, and it continued until March 1612 because he promised marriage, and that would restore her respectability in society. Her father ended up finding out, and Agostino was sent to exile through court, even though it was never actually enforced. She channeled the energy of having to work so much harder for recognition in her field, seeing the unfairness that women endured in the streets of her home, and now the trauma of being physically, emotionally assaulted and manipulated by someone she was supposed to trust. This brings us into our next piece, Lucretia, which was painted sometime in 1627. The one we are covering is going to be the one that can be seen at the Getty Center, but she had actually painted it 4 times in her life. Lucretia is another piece about a female heroine who committed suicide after she was raped by the king of Rome as to defend her innocence, which led to a rebellion in the people to overthrow the monarchy and restore the peace. We can see the emotions in this piece, as with many Baroque pieces, in the deep contrast of dark and light colors and the symbolism of her pale and dressed beautifully about to plunge a blade into her chest. It is a sad and emotionally engaging piece, which is exactly why Artemisia painted it. Artemisia was excellent at portraying these stories in the most accurate perspective from a female, where nothing is romanticized or skewed for a male perspective. The brute emotion and real anger depicted in these pieces in reaction to the horrors that occurred to her is why I think they speak and resonate so deeply with modern women in today's time. To speak out and create these works of art that stood against injustice towards women in such a bold way when she didn't even technically own her own body is a feat in itself and something we should applaud all these years later.